Hey now, cats, we're back again this week on the Balls from Ellwood show. We've been gone a little bit of time, but hey, you know what? Things change. Doing it punk rock DIY like we're always gonna do it. We're gonna do it till the wheels fall off. So, XTinas?
Wow.
It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. I've missed you.
I missed you too.
Oh, wow.
You had me from hello.
Aww, he's so sweet. Anyway.
But anywho, we got a ton of shit to get to. Don't have time to fuck around. Don't have time for explanations and bullshit. Who cares? Nothing bad to say. No gossip to say. Just saying. Doing shit on our own again.
Mm-hmm.
We're our own boss. We're those type of people. So
now you get an hour show instead of 30 minutes. Maybe even more than an hour.
yeah, if we want to go all goddamn night and you stupid motherfuckers want to watch, be my guest.
That's right.
So anyway, moving right along. One big thing that's got my motors running today, cats, is I heard a rumor that Tony Todd is going to reprise his role as the Candyman in the June 12th, 2020, not a remake, but a spiritual sequel of the Candyman. Not much is known about this mystery plot. I know a little bit as they're going to go back to where legend began. Gentrified section of Chicago with the Cabrini Green Housing Project once stood, if you guys remember from the first one. Jordan Peele wrote the script. I am excited. I hope this is a real thing. That's all I have to say, Kat. But we have did a lot of stuff in the meantime. I mean, since we've been gone a few weeks, we got to see some concerts, XTinas.
Yeah, I dropped you off at Rancid, like you're my little punk rock son.
I was like, Mommy, drop me off the punk rock show. She did. Went to see Bad Religion. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Saw the Descendants.
Legendary.
Great. I mean, all these legendary, like 70s, 80s, 90s punk rock bands have been coming to town. Now that Pittsburgh has this awesome new theater, shout out to the Roxy Theater. Check it out. Plug. If you haven't tried it out, check it out.
Since we're doing plugs, I would like to thank our new sponsors, Chop Block TV, and I'm going to put up some links for them, cats. Check them out. We're working in conjunction with them guys. They're super duper cool. They have a variety of different things you can check out on the internet. I'm going to put some plugs up, so check that out. Also, since we were gone, the man, the myth, the legend, Sid Haig passed away, folks.
Yeah.
I'm sick of losing all these horror icons. It makes me super sad. I met the man. He was super sweet guy. Always loved his fans. Sid, you'll be missed, buddy. And now I'm going to go into rapid fire Balls movie review mode.
Ooh.
I'm going to review a bunch of movies, super duper quick, and then we're going to get to a couple that we actually want to talk about. So I'm going to do it quickly. Rambo. Ba-ding! Don't listen to the haters. Movie was fucking awesome. Itsy Bitsy.
Itsy Bitsy.
Bing!
Yeah, we'll give it a bang. Sure.
Candy corn. Riot Girls.
It sounds like my fart.
That one, yeah, that sounds like your fart. That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show, yeah.
Satanic Panic. Bing! Not to mention, Arrow's got a great Exorcist 3 Blu-ray coming out with a Legion cut on December 9th. I'm super excited about that. Takeshi Miike's got a new movie coming out. You know I love him. It's called First Love. It looks like Baby Driver meets, maybe Pretty Woman meets the Yakuza Cats. Check that out.
Wow.
And now, let's talk about two things in depth here, XTina. I want to start off with, actually I'm going to turn it over to you, and I want to talk about a little known gem we've seen called The Fanatic.
The Fanatic.
Tell them about The Fanatic, would you?
Guys, The Fanatic. You gotta watch it. It's hilarious. It's not meant to be hilarious. It is a creepy stalker movie with the stalker being John Travolta.
Oh, my head.
Who plays this, like, 50-ish-year-old autistic dude.
Named Moose.
Who is obsessed with this actor played by Devon Sawa, and he meets him. He's a total dick to him, so this makes Moose very unhappy. So Moose begins to stalk him so he can get his autograph, and wackiness ensues. And oh my gosh, Travolta's character, just for him playing this role alone, it's worth watching, because I don't know whether I love it and that he needs to win an Oscar, or if it's just so bad. I don't know. I can't tell you.
It's funny you say that, because I've been on the fence since we watched this probably 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And every day I still can't decide.
You keep teetering.
It's either the most brilliant performance I've ever seen Travolta give.
Yes.
Or the most Tommy Wiseau god-awful performance that's still brilliant for that reason.
Yeah.
So, I mean, either way, you can't lose.
Nah, it's great.
Devon Sawa, he wasn't acting. He's a real dickhead in real life. A real quick story. Tried to get him for the show. Told him, hey, I really liked your work in Final Destination. I'm a big horror fan, blah, blah, blah. Has anybody ever really said that to this dude before? Like, I like your work? What the fuck's he been in? Idle Hands, Final Destination? Okay. So, blocked me on Facebook, so... Wasn't acting. Seems like a real douchebag in real life. So
He thought you were the real Fanatic.
he thought I was Moose. So
Yeah, he thought you were Moose. Balls, Moose, same thing.
But anyway. Moving right along, the last thing we need to cover before we get to bigger, better ventures, I want to take a few minutes and talk about how much I love the new Shudder series, Creepshow. As you know, super Creepshow fan, grew up as a kid. I was very skeptical that this could pull off the same kind of fun 50s comic-y Tales from the Crypt comic kind of thing, and I tell you what, I feel like there's a lot of potential coming in this season. First episode, it was decent. It was pretty good. I mean, it didn't blow my skirt up the whole way, but it blew up enough that it did make me excited to, in fact, want to watch the whole season. I do think it was done well. If anything, there's 2 stories in each episode. There's going to be 6 episodes total. The last will be the finale on Halloween. And this first episode was based on a Stephen King story called Gray Matter. Second story, I believe, was the guy that did Bird Box, I think. It was The House of the Head, which was a really... I mean, I didn't even think I was going to like it, but it was a very interesting camera techniques and really different premise for like that kind of story. I don't want to give too much away, but things you can look out for, cats. There's so many homages, and you can tell there's so much love and passion put in this project, and all the people love this, working on it, and it just shows 100%. I haven't even caught them all yet, but I've caught so many things that are homage to the movies. For one, let's see here. There's the Bedelia's ashtray. If you look in the dollhouse in the second story, that's sitting there. She gets a figure of old Chief Woodenhead to help her in the second story. In the first one, I do believe if you go in the beginning, there's wanted posters all over. There's a picture of Church from Pet Sematary. There's a picture of the thing of Evil, which is Stephen King's real cat.
Oh, wow.
There's a picture of that. There's pictures from various animals from different Stephen King movies. Those are just a few. I don't want to give them all away. I had fun picking them out myself. It definitely warrants a rewatch. Tobin Bell was in it.
And isn't this directed by Greg Nicotero?
Yeah, Nicotero, I do believe, directed this first one. And then it's going to be different directors after that. But all in all, I think it's definitely a success. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Granted, some stories are better than others always, but I thought it was solid. I'm excited for the series, and that's that. So, and now, cats, it's everybody's favorite part of the show. You know her, you love her, I love her. XTina, Depravity Corner. You got a fucked up story for us, or what this week?
I sure do. So, for some strange reason, there's a lot of parents that kill their kids. I mean, I know, it's sad but true fact. Typically, these kids are babies, very small, when they're super duper annoying, throwing fits, what have you. I totally get it, but you just don't, go through with it. However, what you don't hear much of, and I've heard now twice in the past month, are people killing their adult children. And not just any people. These are rich, prominent in society people. For instance, let's go to Atlanta, Georgia, where this woman, Marsha Edwards, killed her 20-year-old daughter, Erin, and her 24-year-old son, Chris. Their father and the ex-husband is a prominent doctor in the Atlanta area. She also is listed as a doctor, but I don't think she's practicing. She has gone on to do other things, but she's also, she's a businesswoman. I think she sells things in the medical field, from what I understand. But, well, she doesn't do anything now. But anyway, the bottom line is, loves her kids. Her kids are super successful. The daughter goes to like a nice college. Her son graduated college, lives in New York. He's working for I don't know, he's like a journalist now or something. Seemingly great lives, great family, great values, the whole thing. And wouldn't you know it, she takes them on vacation because, they don't see each other as much now. Takes her daughter to Italy, posts all these beautiful photos on Instagram, so happy. Her son, they went to Florida together, had a nice little trip. I think it was August 24th. She made a post about how proud she is of her children and how much they make her proud. Later that day, she took a gun, shot them and herself. Killed them dead. Why? Nobody knows. No clue. My first assumption was, she's getting back at the husband for doing something, but they've been divorced for 5 years. So, what could he have done? And apparently they had a pretty decent relationship. I mean, they helped each other raise the kids. I don't know what could have happened, to make her snap to do something so insane. I mean, it's just so sad. They had such promising futures. They had, they all had seemingly great lives. Again, I guess you truly can't believe everything you see on the internet. But nothing's come out yet as far as, why she snapped. And, I mean, nobody who knows that family can even comprehend it. And, 2 weeks ago, we had a similar situation. An attorney in LA decided that he didn't want his family around either anymore. 60 years old. He's a deputy city attorney. Kills his wife and a son. Son is 19. His name is Eric Lertzman, 60 years old, with his wife Sandra, also 60. Again, seemingly very, quote-unquote normal family. The daughter, who also lived at home, was in her 20s, I believe. She saw this starting. Dad come at her with a gun while she's in her bedroom. She jumps out the window. Runs to the neighbors. They, of course, call 911, but I mean, what can be done? So I guess when the daughter jumped out the window, the dad went back in the bedroom and shot himself. So naturally, they get there to a bunch of dead people. Luckily for her, she got away. But now she has to live with this. And what happened? And they say that, he just snapped because he's had a recent loss. His mother died. Now this man is 60. Gonna go out on a limb and assume mom was at least 80, if not older. Our parents die. I mean, I guess maybe he never got the memo, but it happens. People's parents die and you don't go out and shoot your family. That's not a coping mechanism in any way, shape, or form. I don't understand. And again, no motive. Nobody knows. He just snapped. But are we going to look into this? Like, I feel like, I don't know if you can, like, scan their brains and see if, like, you know, there was medication was a factor or anything like that, or just, like, I don't know. It's just, it's so heartbreaking and so confusing that, you know, two seemingly well-to-do, well-respected community members with seemingly great lives up and kill their families for no apparent reason. It's just bizarre. I mean, there are moments, I have to admit, parenting is hard, that, you know, I'm ready to kill my kid, right? I'm ready to slam her little head up against that wall. And yeah, see, he knows nothing about this, right? Yeah. But, you know, I have this little switch in my brain that goes, don't do that. You can't do that. Come to your senses. Perhaps their switches are broken? I don't know. Do you have? I mean, what are your thoughts, Balls?
I have a switch like that. It's usually like, do it.
Oh. Uh-oh.
But then I have a switch over here. It's like, you can't do that, you dumb bastard. You're going to go to jail.
Okay.
Then the other switch goes, do it anyway.
Oh, no.
But then the other one's like, you can't do that either. And it goes on all day long. I can't tell.
Oh, my God.
But ultimately, good prevails over evil. So.
I mean, it's just bizarre. And it's so sad. And, you know, what else can you say? Just try not to kill your kids. I know it's hard. It's very hard. But, you know, we gotta do what we can do.
That's the moral of the story this week. If you could do one good thing for society this week, don't kill your kid.
Don't kill your kids. I mean, unless, of course, they've done something terrible, then maybe you could. But I don't know. Otherwise, let's not go there.
Yeah.
Anyway, that concludes this week's Depravity Corner. Stay safe.
And one last segment before we get to my Trent Haaga interview. I got one more thing to talk about. Balls pick of the month. Movie pick of the month. I know I went through a lot of reviews. I got to watch a lot of stuff. There is one shining diamond in the rough this month I'd like to focus on. A little movie called Haunt. What can I say? I don't want to tell you a lot about it. If you see the trailer, some kids go to a haunted house. Said haunted house, you know.
But it's real.
Lots of great conventional effects. Lots of cool kills. Feels like an 80s film. My pick of the month. I don't want to tell you a lot about it.
Yeah.
Go check it out. Watch the trailer. Trust me.
Even XTinas liked it.
There you go. 10 out of 10 on the balls meter.
Oh, wow. 10 out of 10.
That's a lot of balls.
That's a lot of balls. Yeah, wow.
So anywho,
alrighty then.
Cats, tune in to my interview with Trent Haaga. Hope you enjoy it. He's a great dude. I've loved him since I was a kid. You know that. Trauma alumni, doing the indie thing. He's done tons and tons of great films.
68 Kills, really awesome.
Great film.
Check
Dead
it out.
Girl. All kinds of Terror Firmer, write the script to Toxic Avenger 4. I could go on all day, work for Full Moon. But we'll get to that interview. Yeah. Hope you like it. Think it's one of my better ones personally. Check it out.
Take care.
Hey now, cats, we're back again this week in the Balls from Ellwood show, and with me, I have one of the people that I love growing up, what I've admired growing up. He's an incredible dude. He's a writer. He's a director. He's an actor. What the fuck do you know? What do you not do, dude? Like, seriously.
I do all the domestics around here, you know, car mechanic, whatever. I do it all. What do I not do? Make movies that most of you have seen.
Well, I tell you what, man, we'll get into that here. I just want to get, where did you grow up, Trent?
Well, I grew up in Western Kentucky, Southern Indiana, West Virginia, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri. My dad was worked for Peabody Coal Company his whole career. My grandpa was a tool and die maker for General Electric in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm a very solidly Midwestern guy.
Nice, man. Like, I mean, were they supportive of what you wanted to do? Or did you always want to be like a writer, a filmmaker, a director? I mean, was it these things that you aspired to when you were younger? Or did that come later on when you got older?
You know, it has to be one of these things where we've got to go in the way back machine. I'm an old man. I was born in 1971, right? So the idea that, of course, we had TV and we had movies. I grew up in a town that didn't have a movie theater, and the closest movie theater was a twoplex that was about 45 minutes to an hour away. So going to the movies was like a pretty big deal. And obviously, we had CBS's Monday Night Movie or whatever, but I was in love with movies as a young child, but like the idea that I would ever be able to go and make them, that was not something that people discussed or talked about in 1976. There weren't, there was maybe UCLA, but when you're growing up in a trailer park in Kentucky, nobody is like, oh yeah, I think that's a realistic goal. You should be able to make movies. It just wasn't a thing. I mean, I honestly thought I was going to just work in the coal mines or whatever. That's what I kind of figured that I was destined to do. But I was always the weird kid. I was always in a town of 5,000. I wanted to listen to Billy Idol or Adam and the Ants, and I was into the idea of skateboarding and liked horror movies, and all this stuff is very normal now. You know what I mean? The internet has made it possible so that you can always hook up with the people that have the same interests as you. But at the time, I just felt like I was a complete and total freak, and everybody in my town was like, "Oh yeah, that Trent. Well, he's got a weird name and he likes weird movies. What's up with that?" When I finally, it's funny when I finally. I was about 12 years old, and this movie called Summer School with Mark Harmon came out.
Yeah, like that. The dude.
And you know what I'm talking about, right? All these people came up to me and they were like, "Trent, have you seen that movie?
You're in it."
Yeah, characters that are just like you, man." And I was like, "Get out of here!" And so, Summer School is not the kind of movie that I was normally into, but I went, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's other people that think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like the best thing ever. What is this?" And as I got older, by the time I got into high school, VHS was out, and I worked at the independent video store when I was in high school, and I was just like, I was of that generation. So then I really got into movies, and my parents were like, "Look, we've saved up some money. You can go to college." And I was like, "Yeah, let's get crazy. I want to go to film school." And then everybody was like, "Well, for sure, you're going to end up back here in the mines."
But isn't it nice to prove them wrong, man?
It's really weird. I sort of look at it like I find something I want to do and I try to do it, and you take baby steps forward and put one foot in front of the other, and eventually you've made a bunch of movies. And I never whenever I sit down even now to do a project, I don't really do much visualization about what suit I'm going to wear to the awards ceremony or what, you know what I mean? It's just like, how am I going to get this thing done? And I approach it kind of like digging a coal mine, I guess. You don't think about the diamond you might find inside the mine. You think about the 16 tons that you got to dig that day. And that's how I approach it. So, but it's like, they weren't unsupportive of me. It was just sort of like, really? Like, you want to make movies? Okay, that's never going to happen. So
That's cool that they at least, accepted that. Like, they gave you a little bit of loot to go to school and pursue it rather than be like, no, you need to do this and that's it,
Yeah, I mean, they always knew I was the weird one, so what are you going to do? Like, discourage me? I think the idea is like, encourage him and like give him enough rope and maybe he'll hang himself, or maybe he'll build a rope bridge. I don't know. We'll see.
There you go, man. But I mean, I can relate, man, because it seems like it's funny to me as we got older. When I was younger, I was exactly like you, man. I was always looked at the same. I was always the weird kid that was in the horror, and even at a very young age. I mean, and I know you're a lover of horror like myself. What was the first film that definitively gave you the bug, man? Like, I could think back, and I used to watch this thing. It was a horror host around here locally, Chiller Theater. And I used to be a little kid, and I'd lay in front of the TV, and I seen so many great films they'd play, like Motel Hell and stuff like that. And I could tell that's when I got the bug. But I mean, I love asking people like you, like, definitively, can you think of that one moment where you're chasing the dragon, man, where you seen it and like you just thirst for it, and you're always looking for that thrill that you got from the first time you've seen a horror film?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few, and they also go back to that pre-VHS period. Obviously, my parents for a bit they moved to Lexington, Kentucky, and that was had a drive-in, and so I remember being like 4 or 5 years old and going to a Ray Harryhausen double feature of, I think, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and Golden Voyage of Sinbad with my parents, and they were like, your mouth dropped open, your eyes got wide, you sat there, you were mesmerized by all these like stop motion animation monsters and stuff like that. And later on, when we moved to a smaller town in Kentucky, and I was like maybe 6 or 7, we had that Samurai Saturdays or whatever, and I think it was Frankenstein's Bloody Horror by Paul Naschy. They were showing that like on a Saturday afternoon. I used to get the TV guide, and I would go through it and look and read all of Saturday and all of Sunday, especially paying attention to early mornings and late nights, looking for horror movies that might be out, right? Because this is pre VCR, man. I mean, you're like Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. Oh yeah, dude, I got it.
I used to do the same thing. I'd actually get a highlighter and I'd highlight everything in the TV guide, and that was my life, man. I always had problems sleeping, and as you know, the best TV comes on late at night, so you got to see all that stuff. But
you know what? The kids are never gonna know ever again, ever how real the struggle was.
No, man, everything's right at your fingertips now, man. There's almost like some odd charm to that diamond in the rough that you dug for and you found and you enjoyed, you know. Even like with video stores, I still kind of miss. I'm an old dude, obviously, because I miss going in and hunting and finding just like you go through you rent 20 shitty movies, and then you find that one, like that diamond in the rough, and like you earned it and you worked for it. And nobody does it anymore. There's no way to even,
kids won't ever understand this. Like they don't, and it's never going to happen again. I look at it like, you know, I was a kid. I grew up. I was in Kentucky. I was riding a skateboard, and I heard rumors that there was a magazine about skateboarding, right? And so then I have to go searching and go to another city and find a copy of a magazine called Thrasher. And I open it up and I'm looking at it and I see a guy doing an air and he's got a sticker on the bottom of his board. It's got a skull and it says Misfits. I'm like, I don't even know what Misfits is. Is it a band? Is it a skateboard brand? Is it a wheel? You know what I mean? I don't know, but I really like that iconography. And then like a couple of issues, then I have to buy a subscription. And then a couple issues later, there's an interview with Glenn Danzig and it's like, oh, this is a band. And then you're like, how can I access this? And then maybe you'll search around and you'll find one record and you're like, I have no idea how many, this could be the only record, or the Misfits could have 30 records. I don't know. And in order for me to find this out, I have to do diligent and serious work. You know what I mean? It's like you can become an expert on Wikipedia in 30 seconds on any subject. And if people take that for granted and they don't understand how rewarding it was to the sense of discovery.
Feeling now, you know, like, I mean, I feel bad because like I kind of, that excitement, you know, it's almost, it's like drugs only safer, you know, like, I mean, but,
no, it
Walk Among Us changed my life, dude. 8th grade, I'm a big Misfits fan. We actually came to the Forum to see the reunion whenever they came.
I did it twice. I did the Forum in LA, and then just a couple.
You were in LA at the Forum.
Yeah. I was at the LA Forum show.
With you, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, you were there too at that one?
Flew out, man, to go just specifically that stage there too.
And then they played at this place called the Bank One Stadium or whatever, a new stadium downtown like a couple months ago. I had to go see them again. I had to do it.
I'd love to do it, man. I would have loved to watch that show at Madison Square Garden with them and Rancid.
Yeah, right. I'm a huge fan of the Damned. They're one of my favorite bands like ever. I've seen them like 15 times, and unfortunately, every time the Misfits play in LA, the Damned don't open for them. I'm like bummed out, but it's okay. I've seen them a billion gajillion times. You know.
We just went to see Rancid last night. We're going to see the Descendants tonight.
Oh yeah. I was actually at the LA premiere of Verotica a couple weeks ago.
Dude, I keep hearing people say it's like the horror equivalent of The Room. Is it really that bad?
You know, or is it really that good? That's the question.
Yeah, I love bad films, so to me, I probably will love the shit out of it. So I mean,
yeah. Look, I feel like, man, it's one of those movies where, first of all, God bless Glenn Danzig. I hope he makes a fucking $100 million. I don't give a shit. I know some people are like, oh, that guy's a dick or whatever, but fuck them. And he deserves $1 billion for making it. But I mean, I was like, wait a minute. Like, this guy's a huge movie fan who's seen a lot of movies. Like, how could this be this incompetent? There was always the point where I was like, he's got to be doing this on purpose, right? I mean, come on. He's seen a lot of movies. He loves this shit, right?
So, I mean, maybe he's pulling the wool on everybody, you know?
You know, maybe he is. You know, it was interesting. He came out for a Q&A later, and I mean, people were like ripping on the movie, like laughing, but it was a really like Fun though. I mean, people were having a great time with it, but we were we were laughing at it, certainly. You know what I mean? It was not a movie that you're supposed to laugh with, I don't think. But then I was like questioning it. But then Glenn came out and talked about it, and he just seemed like really happy about the response. And I don't think he did it on purpose, quite frankly. But whatever he did, it couldn't. He could. I don't think he could have done this on purpose. It's almost like The Room. It's something where it's a natural outcome of something that like you can't fake that shit. You can't fake it.
I had read that he was paying homage to like old Italian films, which I really think people over here still don't kind of fully understand that dynamic. So I mean, if that's the case, I could see why people would be a little
yeah, maybe. Although, like, look, man, I'm a huge fan of Giallos. I've watched, I'm old just like you. I've watched them all, man.
Did you ever see the Blind Dead trilogy?
The what?
Did you ever see the Blind Dead trilogy?
Of course. There's actually 4 of them. Come on.
Ghost Galleon. That's the 4th one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Night of the Seagulls, I guess, in some things, right? I don't know, whatever. But the point is,
Blind Dead, Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Seagulls, and Ghost Galleon, I think.
There you go. Right. I'm a fan, man. I've watched all this. Look, I don't know. You probably didn't notice because I'm so deep cutty, but I totally stole one of my favorite shots from this movie, 68 Kill, from Mario Bava's $5 for an August Moon. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you
go back and watch it again.
$5 for an August Moon. I watched that in the theater like years ago and was like, okay, not one of Bava's strongest, but there's one shot in there. And I turned to the person I was sitting with and was like, I'm going to steal that shot one day. And I totally put it in this movie. So I'm a huge fan of the Giallos. I'm a huge fan. And I can't say that, like, no, Veronica's not.
Was you satisfied with the third part of the Three Mothers trilogy, Argento? What do you think of Mother of Tears?
You know what? It's like I want to rewatch that. Some friends of mine wrote that movie, and I only saw it once when it came out on DVD, and now it's sort of like harder to find. It's a little bit out of print. It's not on any streaming service, but if I get an opportunity, I'm going to try it again because. But Argento kind of like, hey man, it happens. You fumble the ball or you making movies is hard, man. And there's a reason that like all the good stuff tends to come from 20-something-year-olds. You still got the juice and the energy and the whatever. And I think that a guy like Argento, by the time he reached his 50s and 60s, he was like, man, I already made my Suspiria. I made my Inferno. I made my Deep Red. I made my 4 Flies on Grey Velvet. I've done this. So I don't know. I think they're
on to someone else.
Yeah, there comes a little bit of a complacency is what I'm saying. I think when you get older and you've reached some level of success, you know what can keep your edge when you're an old guy like me? Just never become successful. And then the fire is still like hard and hot.
That's not true. Nerds like me think you're a god and an idol. So I mean that should be worth its weight in gold, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to tell my landlord that the next time I got to pay rent.
I'll tell him, hey man, I'm broke too, but please don't kick Trent out. Well, moving right along, dude. I mean, now I guess we could touch. I'd like to touch briefly about your trauma career, but I really want to focus on all your other projects because you got a shit ton, man. I mean, you did an exorbitant amount of stuff in the past 20 years. But I mean, obviously, trauma was probably your first, right? Didn't you say it was coming out of? Was it coming out of college?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I, obviously I grew up watching Trauma on USA Up All Night or Night Flight or whatever.
That's right. And it just, right from there, man, I'm still to this day Trauma loyal.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very aware of them. I knew who they were. I graduated film school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up following a girl up to New York City who's now my wife of 30 years. And I went up there and I got a job. And it was like during the internet boom, and I was doing sort of all the entertainment content for this website called CompuServe. I don't know, whatever. There was CompuServe and there was AOL, and they were the only 2 ways you could get online back in the day.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. So I did all the entertainment. I would scan press kits and slides and write descriptions. Be like, check out this picture of Cameron Diaz in Something About Mary looking hot. And then they'd be like, oh, it's going to take me 30 minutes to download this picture because, whatever. And so I did an interview with Lloyd Kaufman for this website, or it was pre-website. It was CompuServe. And I was the guy. I was just into it, and I saw that they were looking for extras for this movie. And I pitched to my boss at CompuServe, listen, I'll go for a day and be an extra, and I'll take some pictures or whatever, and we'll make a story out of it. And I was thinking that'll get me to be an extra. So when I went to the audition, I didn't have a headshot. I didn't have a resume. I was a film student who turned into an internet movie reviewer guy or whatever. And I just told him my story, and I was like, look, I don't have anything. I want to be a background extra, and if you let me do this, I'll write a story on CompuServe. And Will Keenan was the casting, Tromeo was the casting agent, and he just kept calling me back, and this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and eventually I landed the role of Jerry in this movie, which is a pretty significant role. And I went to my boss and was like, look, I've been given this opportunity, but I need to take 20 days off to go shoot this movie. I'll come right back and work with you or whatever, but I'm either going to quit right now or you're giving me 20 days off. And they were like so excited because, it was an entertainment-based site, and I got a job on a real movie and whatever. So I went and made this thing, and that truly was the chasing the dragon. That was truly the thing that made me go, I can never return to civilian life. Even if it's writing reviews of movies or whatever, I'll never return to civilian life again. Making films is like being a vagabond. It's like being an artistic hobo. It's new and different every day. You're working with new groups of people. You're going to new locations. You're getting to see parts of buildings or cities that you normally would have never. And you're, telling stories in the medium that, we grew up loving. So, man, once I got Terra Firma and I did it, that was it. And I sort of I was the actor that hung around and helped the crew pick up trash and load up equipment because I, was familiar with all the stuff. And I slipped Lloyd a screenplay that I had written, and Lloyd read it, and he liked it enough that he hired me to write The Toxic Avenger Part 4. And I mean, from then on, I hit the ground running, and I've
have to say, other than the first one, 4 is my favorite. I don't think they're going to make one better than that.
Thank you. It's really interesting because, and I feel like I agree. And I also feel like that movie sort of stands the test of time a little bit in a weird kind of a way, just because it's so outrageous. It's so outrageous,
It's just as good now as it was when I went to the premiere in Pittsburgh when they came they had Trauma Fest, and they played. It was all weekend long. Lloyd stayed with my buddy's friend, and it's not open now. It closed, unfortunately, because the way video stores with the way the Buffalo. But he had an incredibly strange video, and it was all altered the things that we're into. So they had Trauma Fest, and Lloyd stayed with him all weekend. And it was one of the best weekends of my life, man. We went to they rented out a theater. We played Trauma movies all weekend long. We had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It was so much fun, but. Yeah, and then the premiere, the last thing that night was the premiere, Toxie 4, and it was so good. And I've watched it so many hundreds of times. I watch it I watch all that stuff all the time, man. I love it. I quote shit from it constantly. It's so much fun. I don't think they should just probably stop. I don't even think another one's necessary. I think you raised the bar pretty high with that one, dude.
Yeah, that was the idea. Is I agree. I was really disappointed in part 2 and 3, and I was young in my 20s, and I got this opportunity, and I felt like I was when we made sort of Terra Firma and Citizen Toxie, what to me that was it was the first generation of people working on trauma movies that grew up watching trauma. And so I feel like we had sort of a better understand. Lloyd was just doing it his own blindly with people who wanted to be actors, and we're like, what the fuck are we doing? You know what I mean? In the 80s. But by the time the 90s came around, we were a bunch of kids, like me in particular. I produced it, I wrote it, I AD'd it, I acted in it, and I grew up loving trauma. And so I had an understanding of what I thought trauma was all about. And I think that those movies in particular just came out so much more wackadoodle and purely trauma because they were made by people who had been raised on trauma. And so it was interesting. It was an interesting time, and I whatever, man, I'm proud of those movies, and I love Lloyd, and he's the guy who gave me my first opportunity. I was just a kid from Kentucky who was like, I'll do whatever you want me to do, and he'll give you enough responsibility until you either rise to the challenge or you destroy yourself,
Well, let me ask you one more question about that. I don't want to move on. Is it different working on a trauma film set as opposed to any other, and how?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Lloyd brings his own particular brand of chaos to the set, but that's what gives it its unique and individualistic feel. I think he's really truly an auteur, you know? But at the same time, like he has to find that. Like you're sort of trying to all work to help Lloyd Kaufman achieve his vision. Later on, I ended up moving to LA, where I live now, and I got a job working for Charles Band, who's also a guy who's like sort of an auteur or whatever. He's got his own thing, but his his he was a lot more commercially minded, and he was very much about budget, and he was very much about like getting out of there in 8 hours, and it was a different experience. So I learned how to follow my artistic muse a little bit by working with Trauma. But I really learned the nuts and bolts of how to bring in a movie on an extremely low budget in a short amount of time by working for Charles Band. I feel like I got the best of both worlds. But I mean, what's great about Lloyd is that you really feel like you're making art. And I mean, as much as I value my time working for Band or whatever, that's learning about how to like hit a target and hit a page count target for the day, hit your budget target. I mean, they're both incredibly like valuable assets to have as a film director or a filmmaker. But the two guys have extremely opposite, diametrically opposite like methodologies, you know.
I mean, I grew up on the Empire and Full Moon stuff as well. I mean, that's the best of both worlds, right? Puppet Master and Subspecies and all that stuff. And, yeah, that's awesome, dude. Let me ask you this: what's one thing about you that your fans would be surprised to know?
Wow, you know, it's interesting. There's probably a lot of things. I tend to be a pretty private guy overall. This like podcasts, man, or interviews. I don't really do them that much. I don't know. If you go back and look, like maybe every couple years I'll do something like this.
I am honored, honestly. Thank you very much for participating.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, it's interesting, man. I am an excessively normal dude. I've been with the same woman for 30 years. I got 2 kids. I got a dog laying here next to me. I am sort of my mind is full of insanity, but and my movies are chaotic and wild, but my actual like day-to-day existence, man, I am like about the normalest, most well-adjusted guy like ever. That's
awesome, dude. That's a plus for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the good thing is I've said this. It's like I think one thing that people would be surprised. I don't drink alcohol, and I never have, right? And also, I've been with a woman for 30 years, and I've always been a person without any real sense of power. So all those times I was like, this really sucks. I'm missing out on a lot of stuff. But now in 2019, I'm like, oh my God, I somehow inadvertently fixed it so I'll never get Me Too'd. How'd that happen?
Well, that's great. And what was the best experience and worst experience working on a movie set?
Oh man, I mean, you know, the best experience would have to go back to my Trauma days, my early days, because everything was so fresh and new and exciting. But I do remember we were standing there making the Toxic Avenger 4 one day, and it was myself and Patrick Cassidy, the other producer, and Lloyd Kaufman, and our special effects guys. And there's a scene where there's an old woman, and she gets run over by evil Kabuki man. And so we had to crush the head, right? Yep. So we're crushing the head, and we're like, well, you know what? Maybe the scene needs a little bit more. And we're all standing there, and there's this lady laying there with like a bunch of guts all over her head. Because first we run over with the watermelon, and then we would like move all that out of the way and have the real body there so it could like shake. You know?
and then she pisses and shits herself too, I think, right?
Okay, so there we are. We're sitting there, and we're like, you know, Lloyd, maybe the scene needs a little bit more. And I was like, maybe she should shit and piss all over herself. You know what I mean? Like a decapitated body might do. And then like Lloyd was like, well, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? And then we look at the special effects guy, and he's like, do you have any shit or piss? And so then here we are, like 4 fully grown human people standing around a girl laying there with a bunch of like guts on her head, like having logistical and artistic decisions about whether we should and how we can achieve the old lady whose head we just run over getting like shitting and pissing herself. And I just remember like sort of stepping outside of my body and being like, I cannot believe that you were standing here having a conversation with Lloyd Kaufman about how to make an old lady shit her pants herself in a movie that you wrote. You wrote this gag, dude. You know what I mean? It was like one of those moments where you're like everything is perfect.
Well, what if you had to pick like
Oh,
a project?
hands down, dude, it's easy. It's easy. It's so easy. And I don't, God damn it. This is like, wow. Okay. So I made this movie called The Ghouls and 2002 with a friend of mine, Chad Farron. We did a handful of movies together.
Unspeakable, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he submitted Unspeakable to Trauma when I worked at Trauma, and I saw it there and was like, "This movie's amazing, Lloyd. You got to put it out." And I was a big champion of Unspeakable when he submitted it to Trauma for distribution. Based on the fact that I went to bat for him or whatever, I became friends with this filmmaker from LA, and then I moved out here and we became buddies and we did a couple movies. So we did this movie called The Ghouls, and we shot it for about $10,000 maybe of our own like pooled money in downtown LA, like it's Skid Row. Like in downtown Skid Row is horrifying, man. You know, I mean, I lived in Manhattan, I lived in New York City, I've lived around. But downtown LA in the middle of the night is horrifying. But we didn't need permits, and we were doing these people crawling out of manhole covers and whatever. And I'm acting in this movie, and we're shooting at night because it's a nighttime thing, and also like the cops won't harass you down there at night. So we had to eat this stuff called Pioneer Chicken. It was this greasy chicken. We ate it at like 3:00 in the morning. About 4:00 rolls around. We're shooting this scene, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. I gotta take a shit so bad. Like, I'm sweating, man. And like, we're in this alley, and like the guys with the camera are on one end, and I'm with the guy on the other end. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's at 4:00 in the morning. There's nothing open. What am I gonna do? Like, and I ended up having to go take a dump behind a dumpster in downtown LA in Skid Row, where every syphilitic hepatitis infected homeless person had like, it was like a hobo toilet back there. And I just remember squatting back there with like Pioneer chicken napkins, you know what I mean, for wiping, and like going, and I'm not making any money off of this. What am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like, why am I suffering like this? Okay, now to add to the story, about 5 blocks down the street, they were shooting, you could see like all the big lights and rigs and everything. They were shooting this TV show Alias. Do you remember that show?
I remember. In fact, I seen the Ghouls. I remember. So now I'll never see it the same way.
Yeah. Exactly. So
too, you stole one of my questions later on, because I always ask everybody, what's your best shit your pants story? This has got to be it. Like, you can't stop this one, right?
Exactly. I almost shit my pants, but I had the wherewithal to go. I would rather go in this behind this dumpster than to have to shit my pants. So but here's the deal: is like about 5 blocks down the street, you can see all the cranes and lights and everything for Alias, and they were shooting it down there. And the funny story is that I graduated high school in Charleston, West Virginia, at a tiny little high school called George Washington High School, and we had a graduating class of maybe like 150. And Jennifer Garner, the lead of Alias, was in my graduating class.
Get the fuck
So
out
I
here.
was sitting there taking this shit behind a dumpster in downtown LA on a bunch of hobo shit, and thinking to myself, man, Jennifer Garner, who I was standing right next to like 8 years ago, is like got a golden heated toilet in her own private trailer, like 5 blocks down. Started in the same place, and now here we are in the same like downtown area, and this is where we're at. Yeah.
Are you familiar with Booth, West Virginia? Because I got tons of relatives from Booth. I used to go there every summer.
Booth, no. I mean, is that I'm familiar with Boone County, which is like right next to where Charleston was, but
It's probably about 45 minutes from the college. I mean, it was like Mayberry, man. There was like the closest post office was like a half hour away. All these back roads, shit, like if you could learn to drive on these back roads, they all fell off, dude. They were like they were all like drop offs and cliffs and shit. So like, I mean.
Yeah, no, totally. It's the same way in Charleston. Although, like, after living in Greenville, Kentucky, and Newburgh, Indiana, like Charleston, West Virginia felt like the fucking big time mega city compared to the places that I'd grown up. But unfortunately, I only got to live there for 1 year. My parents moved me there. I went to my senior year of high school, and then I left. So,
What would your dream project be, man? Like, if you could pick one thing, budgetary wise wasn't an issue, anything wasn't an issue. What would you do?
The Gigi Allen biopic.
Oh, yeah.
The
You
Gigi,
hated?
huh?
Did you ever see Hated? The
Of
GG?
course, I saw it opening night at the theater, and I took my new girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I was like, "They got this documentary about Gigi Allen." And she was like, "What's Gigi Allen?" I was like, "Who? You'll find out."
Yeah, no shit.
So if I had money, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my God, I was just gonna ask you, who would play Gigi?
Leo. There's only one. It's Leo DiCaprio as Gigi Allen in the Gigi Allen biopic. That would be
the Kickstarter because I need to see this.
Yeah, you know what? In a weird sort of a way, my second one would be the Insane Clown Posse biopic, man.
That's crazier than the GG Allen one.
I those two.
You should do like a documentary, like The Gathering, for like for a year or something.
Yeah. Although people have already like nailed that, I find, you know what? You can talk shit about ICP all you want. I've got some of their records or whatever because they're punk as fuck and they don't even know it. Right? You know what I mean? They are the ultimate and do-it-yourself kind of work ethos. You know what I mean? They're like Trauma, except, white clown rappers. I don't know. I read
when they're on. I like them when they're on Howard. Like they're pretty entertaining. Like
no, they're not idiots and they're hard workers. And they were like, I get it. There's a small sliver of disenfranchised trailer trash white kids that like pro wrestling. The same things that we did. I feel like they're basically the same thing. They're like, nobody's making things that speak to me. I feel like that's what Lloyd did, and all the great artists are the people who are like, hey, man, I don't feel like people are making the movies that I want to see. They're not making the music that I want to hear. They're not doing the message that I want to do, and nobody's going to do it if I don't do it myself. And I think that there's something, even Gigi Allen to the same extent. I mean, they're all like rebels, man, and that's always been they're the humans that appeal to me the most.
I get that, man. Even it's not like my cup of tea, but I think people like that are surely important. But anyway, I mean, what I also wanted to ask you, I mean, you write a ton of stuff. I mean, where does your ideas conceptually come from?
That's
just see every day, or is there things that are embedded up there that you need to get out, or it just comes to you? Or
I mean, the best stuff, my best stuff, right, comes mostly from some place of like deep personal pain or shame or embarrassment. You know what I mean? When you're like Dead Girl right here, you know what I mean? When I wrote that movie, I was like, oof, man, should I be doing this? Should I be saying this? Should I be, you know what I mean? That was like weird. Like that movie came out of like some sort of a weird unrequited love that I had for a girl in high school or whatever. And I mean, that was the onus of me writing that movie, but I was sort of why I was having, I guess, incel type thoughts, and then I questioned like, why? What the fuck? What is wrong with you, man? What you're some kind of a fucking monster, And like that's where it came from. When Cheap Thrills, when I sat down to write that, I mean, I had been going through a really bad period work-wise. I wasn't making much money. I had a brand new baby. My wife was like, hey, maybe this isn't going to work out. Maybe you need to start thinking about something else. And I was like, no, but this is what I want to do. And now I'm in this situation. And I said to myself, man, if some guy came up to me and was like, I will give you $100,000 in cash if you cut your hand off with a chainsaw on and you know what I mean, on YouTube right now, I would take it.
So that's where the idea for Cheap Thrills came from.
Yeah. Basically, I was a little kid. I had a wife who was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, man, if somebody came by with an insane opportunity and I had hurt myself to like get money right now, like, for other people's entertainment, like I would do that. And then I was like, oh God, you know what I mean? That's a great movie.
How long does it take you to write, like from beginning to end, like from the very idea, like say you had that idea, to the very end, like to the right when you're ready to film it? Like, how long does it take to write a script?
Every one of them is different. Every one of them is different. Sometimes they come to me in a flash and I happen to be on fire and I can write a first draft very, very quickly. But some things get written and they get turned into first drafts and they just go on this giant pile of unwritten and unproduced and unread scripts that I got back in my office. You would shit yourself if you saw it, And then the other ones, like you end up having to rewrite them. I'd say the shortest that I've ever written a script that has gotten made or whatever is I wrote a movie called Hell Asylum for Charles Band in about 6 nights while I was shooting another movie during the day. So I was shooting all day and then going home at night and banging out like 20 pages or 15 whatever pages a night, and then getting up the next day and shooting as an actor, and then going back to my hotel room and writing. So, and then I went right back and we shot that movie within 3 weeks of me coming back, having written it. And then things like, you know, Cheap Thrills, I wrote. I gave it to my agent at the time. He was like, "What the fuck is this? Why are you wasting your time doing this? No, you're never going to get this movie made." And then it sat on a shelf, on that shelf I was talking about, for like years. It just sat there. And then a friend of mine who was a director heard me pitch it and was like, "I'd like to read it." And then he came back and was like, "I'd like to make this." And then it was another like year and a half of sort of rewrites and development, and the movie gets made. So it all really just depends on the situation. But I try to like get my first drafts written like maybe in about like 2 to 2.5 weeks, because most of the real work comes in the rewriting, honestly.
What do you do for fun?
Oh man, I don't have fun. No, I'm a guy who I watch a movie a night, man. You know what I mean? That's my reward at the end of the day for work well done. Look, I'm an older guy. I like to go to the gym and work out. I sometimes go to skateboard and skate at the skate park, although I'm more afraid of getting hurt these days. I like going to the movies. I like to read, man. I read my comic books, although I don't do superheroes. I only do like crime, cowboys, horror, whatever. Yeah, man. I mean, I've got a wife. I got a senior in high school. I got a 4th grader. And I'm trying to make movies all the time. So my fun is just squeezing in like a movie at the end of the day. You know, I like to smoke my weed and then watch a movie.
Have you seen It 2 yet? What do you think of that?
You know, I have not. I saw It 1 when it came out on DVD. I didn't even see it in the theater. I tend to, if I'm going to go to the theater, I want it to be something that like
an indie film.
Yeah, 100%. I like to give my money to. I'll watch everything when it comes out on DVD or VOD or whatever. But if I'm gonna like pay for something, like I try to make it count. You know what I mean? I know my money isn't worth much, but if I just go dump into every Marvel movie that comes along with everybody else, I quit watching those years ago, purely on like a moral principle. You know what I mean? I can't. They're obviously well done by craftsmen and artisans who know what they're doing and have access to a ton of money. But like, if we keep rewarding these movies and keep making the biggest movies of all time, eventually it's all we're going to get. And I can't have that. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to make a Marvel movie. I need room for my stuff out there. So I tend to support that. So that was a very long answer to the question. No, I have not seen It 2.
I've been kind of burnt out on that kind of thing too, man. I mean, have you had a chance to check out The Boys on, I think it's Hulu?
I actually did watch that, even though I don't do much TV, because I read the comic book. Because although I guess technically it's superheroes, it's not in my mind. And that guy Garth Ennis is one of my favorite comic book writers.
I love when he did The Punisher.
What's that?
When he was writing The Punisher, that was probably some of the best.
Yeah, Punisher Max. I mean, I've read all of Ennis's stuff. So I like The Boys. I thought they did a good job of sort of like streamlining the concept. The comic book is a little sprawly, and I thought that they did a really good job with that. What did I watch? What's that?
I really enjoyed that. It's so nice. It's so like anti-superhero. It's definitely what we need in this age. I'm so sick. I'm sick of movies too, man. I mean, it's I think some of them aren't even really. They're more hyped than good, and they still make how many millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, I don't know. I just I'm almost ashamed that like that's the most grossing film ever made. Like, what does it say about us as a society?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, I really like the freedom. I like the creative aspect of being able to make a lower budget movie. You get to go and do things like once the budgets go high, like you can't take risks anymore. You're not making interesting movies. I mean, what did I do? On Friday, I rented on VOD this movie Haunt.
I loved Haunt, man. We watched that the other night.
I gotta say, I was like, yeah. I just watched this twice last year with like Hellfest and Blood. What's the other one called? Bloodfest or whatever. There were like two of them that were almost the same thing. And then on Thursday night I rented The Fanatic starring John Travolta.
I haven't. I didn't get to watch it yet.
Yeah, Fred Durst movie, and I gotta say, I mean, I liked it better than Haunt because it was a little bit, there was some wackadoodle. John Travolta really commits, man. John Travolta really commits.
I seen what he looked like in the trailer. I'm like, I'm all in. I got to see this fucking movie.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that I tend to go, and I get that VOD stuff, man. I get that that less than $5 million movies. That's where the real magic is. Or I go on to Amazon Prime, which is like going into Kim's Underground in Manhattan. It's like going into the craziest, grottiest video store you've ever been into. Fuck Netflix. Fuck Shudder. Fuck all these services, man. Amazon Prime.
I love Prime. I have Shudder for Joe Bob. That's pretty much it. No.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the good stuff, like all of the Giallos, all of that stuff on Shudder, that's all on Amazon Prime already.
Oh, I know that shit's great. I'm spending a lot of free time on there. I don't want to keep you all day, dude. I have about another 5 or 6 I want to get through.
Yeah. Sorry, man. I you know what? I just am going off on these ridiculous.
I I feel like I don't want to hold you up all day. I'm having a blast, dude. I can talk to you all fucking day, but I assume you're busy, so I don't want to fucking.
Yeah. No, cool. Appreciate it.
I got some fun stuff for you here. So, well, have you ever had a paranormal experience?
I have never had a paranormal experience. I would love to have a paranormal experience, man. I would love to have my brain reopened. I think that when I was a kid, I wanted to believe in the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and ghosts and whatever, like we all did, but then my brain fused and, now I need like some kind of an actual proof. I need something. And it's never happened to me. So, and I even believe it would have to be very powerful. Even if something subtle happened to me, I would explain it away or whatever, so I would love it, but no.
What's the craziest thing a fan's ever asked you to do? And I hope it's not this show.
No. You know what? The craziest thing that a fan has ever asked me to do is actually I got asked to officiate a clown wedding at a haunted house attraction in Corpus Christi, Texas, by 2 clown fans. They wanted me to come as my character Killjoy, that I was in these movies for Charles Band. I played this crazy clown, and these people like got a hold of me. They were like, our names are Shivers and Quivers. We're a clown couple. We're getting wedded at a creepy clown ceremony. We want you to be the best man. And I'm like, whoa, look. My name is Trent Haaga. I'm not actually Killjoy. That's a character that I play in the movie. Like, I don't even, I would have to bring a special effects guy in and stuff. You can't, no. And they were like, no, it doesn't matter. Cost doesn't matter. This is what we want. We want it so badly or whatever. And so I ended up going and bringing the effects guy from Florida, and I flew in from LA, and we met in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I put on all the gear. And like normally when I play Killjoy, I've got a script. I'm around a crew. You know what I mean? And of course, there's a couple selfies that you take at the first day, but by the 5th day, you're just a dude who's there helping to make the movie. And I have lines and whatever. Nobody has ever said, we're going to put this on you and throw you into a situation where you have to be this clown in improv for like 4 hours. So like, that was definitely, I don't think that was a pretty memorable thing. And it was pretty weird. You know what I mean? I was the best man at a clown wedding. So.
What's the best gift anyone's ever given you?
Geez, man. I would say, I mean, this may sound corny, but the best gift, and I consider it a gift, was I won the audience award at South by Southwest for my movie 68 Kill. So I guess it was a gift from the audience, or from the festival or whatever. But to get like an actual like award that you could put on the mantle for a pretty cool festival that I've always been a fan of, and to win like the audience award for the Midnighters there. I mean, I put that on my mantle, and whenever I'm feeling like down or whatever, I'll look at that. As far as like a fan giving me something weird, you know what? I don't really interact that much with them like in the analog IRL, I guess they call it, in real life. Most of my things are via email or whatever. So I can't think of anything really that I've never got anything like weird, like gross or strange from a fan.
That's probably good though. I mean,
Yeah,
back
you
in
know,
the day,
I'm okay. Don't send me menstrual pads or anything. I'm good.
you heard the man. Don't send him anything crazy. That prompted by that question, please. What's the worst blind date you ever went on back in the day before you were all married and everything?
Dude, this is gonna say I've never been on a blind date. I mean, I met my wife when I was 19 years old, right? So, like, I went on
Well, that's
dates with.
good though. You cut out all that bullshit.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, we're talking about, and this was like way pre-internet. It was pre-Tinder, pre-smartphones, pre all that stuff. So, like, I had some girlfriends in high school that were people that I went to high school with, and I had, so I've never been on a blind date. I've never been on a Tinder. I've never done anything like that. So I'm not so good with that. Those kind of stories, kind of square that way.
Can you describe to me the funniest porno you've ever seen?
Oh my God, the funniest porno. You know what's weird is like, gosh, man, I'm gonna go back to old school again, and it's not funny. It's kind of like funny weird. I kind of want to see. I kind of want to see these movies again. There was one called Cafe Flesh, and there was another one. I think it was called Night Dreams or whatever. But they were almost like art film pornos. They were like really weird. There was a scene where a guy and a black guy and a cream of wheat box. Like he's like with his dick coming out of a hole in the giant cream of wheat box he's wearing, and this girl gives him a blowjob, and I always thought that was like really, really weird. I think that was called Night Dreams. I don't know. This was like I found an old crusty VHS tape, like you know what I mean. This was pre-internet again.
Wow, that's that. I got to see this now.
And I seem to remember watching them being like, these aren't really turning me on, but I'm fascinated by them because they're so darkly artistic and weirdly kind of disturbing, the imagery. Yeah, they're worth checking out. I feel like if I watch them again, I could probably be like, oh, I appreciate this from an artistic point of view.
Now, let's talk about 68 Kill for a little bit, man.
Sure.
What was it like to work with that cast, man? That was a killer fucking cast for sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, that was for me my big jump up. My first movie, Chop, that I wrote and that I directed.
Chop, dude. I'm a fan of Chop.
Thank you. But I mean, that movie was made in like 8 days for like $20,000. You know what I mean? And you're just running and gunning it. This is the first time that I actually like was able to try to like get actors that I wanted or I had actually seen in other movies or thought were good. When I was writing this movie, like I was sort of binge watching this TV show Criminal Minds, which I know is not a great show, but it's sort of like peanut butter sandwich of television. You know what I mean? You don't have to think about it. It fills your tummy. It tastes pretty good. You don't regret it too much later. It's like that. And so I think that I just like Spencer Reed, the character that Matthew Gray Gubler plays, just kept getting into my mind while I was writing this movie. And then when it came down to saying, who would you like in this role? I was like, I love this guy. And it was like, well, let's try to get him. And we did. And it was pretty wild. But it's great to work with people that are, whatever. I love working with amateurs that are dedicated, but there's nothing quite like working with professionals. It takes a lot of like sort of weight off your back. When you work with like people that are dedicated and enthused but inexperienced, like some of your bandwidth and your time gets taken up teaching. You know what I mean? Which I don't mind, but when time is money and everything like that, it was just great to work with this cast. And really the key is like trying to find the right people and put them together. Like that's part of the job, is one of the primary jobs as a director, is to be able to see all these pieces and how these actors are going to gel and how it's going to look and how it's all going to come together. It was a great experience, man. We shot in New Orleans. I had like 18 full days of shooting. Like we had 3 6-day weeks, which was unheard of for me. People were still like, wow, you're being really ambitious. There's a lot of locations. There's like car driving stuff. There's a lot of characters and everything like that. Most people, for the amount of money I shot it for and the amount of time, they try to make movies that take place in a singular location like Haunt or whatever. You know what I mean? You're like, well, we can leave our equipment here. We don't have to load up a truck every day. But I was like, look, I've made movies in 8 days for $20,000. If you give me, I can't say the budget, but it's not very much. It was like catering budget for most Hollywood movies. If you can give me that, I can go for broke. And Yeah, man. I love making that movie. And we had bad weather. We had all the things that like plague any low budget film. But I was so excited to be there. I didn't even care, man. And I think that what happens is the enthusiasm at the top sort of spreads. Like whatever the attitude is from coming from the director, it spreads throughout the movie. And I was so happy to be there and had a pretty good energy. That the energy on the set was very positive, and as a result of that, I think like you can feel it in that movie. I feel like when you watch that movie, it looks like it was fun to make. Hopefully.
Yeah, man, it's a really fun movie. It's a very you can tell it just has an energy to it. It's very blackly comic. I love it. It's definitely a hit. Definitely destined for cult classic.
You know, I think so too, and I think that it's going to be one of these things that, yeah, word of mouth will have to be the thing. You know, I've done it quite a few times, man. I mean, my first two movies were Terra Firma and Citizen Toxie, and of course, I made a ton of shit. But I've also made Dead Girl, I made Cheap Thrills, I made 68 Kill. To be fortunate enough to have made this many sort of cult hits. That's exactly what they are. They're movies that didn't have like big stars or big budgets behind them or big marketing schemes behind them. They're just interesting, quirky, strong, well-made movies that slowly gather a following and manage to not ever quite get completely forgotten, you know? And that's, I'm proud of them, you know?
You should be, dude. It's incredible. I mean, but
Thank you.
Before we close, can you give my audience some words of wisdom if they would like to become, say, a director or a writer or actor? I mean, is it something you would encourage people to do?
You know, I'd say it's easier to do now than it ever has been, you know, as far as like cost of equipment and things like that. But it's still just as hard as it's ever been. All right. You know what I mean? It's like anything. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and always sort of, I think that I tend to see a lot of movies at the low budget where people are just so excited to be there making it that they're not hard on themselves. You know what I mean? If you want to move up to the next level, if you want to like keep whatever, you have to kind of like, it's so awesome to show up on set and have a bunch of people look at you and be like, what do you want now? And to maybe sit in a director chair, or have somebody bring you a cup of coffee. And then you start to think, this is it. This is what I've been working for. But that's not what you're working for. You're working for making the movie. The art, the movie is the thing, man. You sitting there doing it is just a moment in time. But the movie has the potential to live on forever. In order to do that, though, you have to really like, you got to dig deep, and you've got to like be hard on yourself, and you've got to be your own worst critic, and you've got to be into it for the right reasons, man. Which is like, I love movies, and someday soon, I mean, I'm halfway through my life. Best case scenario, I'm halfway done. These might still be around long after I'm gone. You know what I mean? So these have to be the best, even if I have to poop behind a dumpster to make it happen. that this, nobody who watches this will know whether or not I was having the greatest time of my life or whether I was suffering horribly. You know, the end product is what really is the most important thing. And you've got to be able to like pull yourself out of the dream of, oh my God, I'm actually directing a movie, to the dream of 50 years from now after I'm dead. Like some kid is going to see this and it might inspire them. It has to be the right thing. And so that's it, man. I mean, just to love what you do and keep trying to improve all the time. And I feel like that's what's kept me going and has made my movies get, you know, better. You know, I feel that they're definitely, the shit I've done has not gotten worse and worse. It's gotten better. And it's because of how I approach doing it.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you're going to live forever through film, which I think is probably the coolest thing ever. What I would like to close with is the last thing I got for you, Trent. What does the future bring for you? I want to know, as a fan, what's coming in the future, what projects you have that we can look out for. I'm excited to see what you got coming up, brother. What do you got coming up?
Well, it's really interesting. I, having worked in this town and having had a couple things, like I had my biggest project ever that you've never heard of because it never got made, but it had major stars. My biggest budget thing. I wrote this movie, and this was back about 12 years ago. This was going to be the thing that blew me up. Lindsay Lohan was one of the stars of this movie. And what? A day before we started shooting, she got busted for cocaine possession, DWI, all that shit that happened.
Holy
And
shit, dude.
yeah, the movie never happened. It was like $8 million. It had James Woods, Giovanni Ribisi, Channing Tatum, Shirley MacLaine, Olympia Dukakis, Rosario Dawson, the DP of Children of Men, all of this stuff. Like, they had full production trailers. I mean, it was going. And the whole thing blew up like a day before we were supposed to start shooting, and they could never get it back up again. And it lost like $1.5 million, and the movie never got made. So the point is I learned then to never, ever, ever, ever talk about things that you were getting ready to do. I'll say that I've got a couple really interesting pots that I'm stirring right now. But the one thing I can't say is that I wrote and directed a segment of a Christmas-themed anthology horror movie called Deathcember that's going to come out in December. So I did one. It's kind of like an ABCs of Death or whatever, but it's like an advent calendar. So there's 24 short films. Each one goes into the door of an advent calendar.
Well, you got me, dude. I'm a sucker for any anthology. That sounds awesome.
All right. Well, I
let
did.
me ask you this, and if you can't give us any specifics,
Yeah.
we keep in touch with you to keep tabs on when you can, in fact, let us know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not afraid. Like, once I've shot something or it's like actually been done, I'm all about talking about it. But if I'm I'm working on a job right now. I'm like on my 5th draft rewrite of this script. It's got a really cool director and star attached. But that's all I want to say, you know, because it could blow up. I had one blow up. What's that?
Oh, I totally understand.
Yeah. And I mean, there's another project that's sort of like not a film, but also not a video game, but somewhere in between the two. But again, it all looks really good, but I just can't, you know what I mean? I don't want to jinx it. I'm a superstitious guy.
Totally get it, man. Just like, where can we find you to keep tabs on you, though? Like, you have an Instagram? Do you have
Yeah, I mean, I got a Twitter and an Instagram. I've never tweeted, and I don't really. I have one gray square up on my Instagram. I got a Facebook. It's a personal page, but I'll pretty much let anybody on board, although I think I'm approaching my 5,000 limit, which I thought would never happen. Maybe one day I'll get into social media, but you know what? You can always reach me via social media. I just don't use it. You know, but I'm a pretty approachable and easy to find guy if you're trying hard. But you know, I wish I did more social media, but that's not true. If I would do it if I liked it.
I totally get it. I'm not really big into it either, but I just want to thank you, man. Thank you so much for being so fucking cool and giving me this opportunity. It's a blast. You've always been an idol of mine, and thank you so much for this, man. Well, I just want everybody out there keep in touch with Trent. Support everything he does because he's just the coolest motherfucker ever. Thank you so much, buddy. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Thank you, Ball.
See you, buddy.
All right, take care, man. Bye.
Bye.